A man tracks his sleep, his workouts, his macros, everything except the 8 hours between dinner and breakfast, assuming nothing important happens while he's not eating. He's wrong. During that overnight window, his body is already running through the first stage of a process most people never let finish. Skipping breakfast isn't just not eating, it's the entry point into one of the most studied, most misunderstood tools in human physiology. Today we're walking through exactly what happens inside your body, stage by stage, when you give it a real, sustained break from food. What changes? What benefits show up at each point? And why a simple pause from eating might be one of the most underrated tools available to you. Stage 1, around 12 hours. The gate opens. Picture your body as a house with 2 power sources. There's the main grid, which is the food you just ate, and there's a giant backup generator sitting in the basement, which is your stored body fat. For most adults, that generator almost never gets switched on because the main grid is always running. Around the 12-hour mark without food, something quiet but genuinely important happens. A hormone called insulin finally settles down. Insulin is essentially the gatekeeper that decides where the energy from your food goes. When it's active, it locks away fat and tells your body to keep using the food you just ate. When it drops, that lock comes off, and your body finally gets access to those fat reserves. Here's what trips people up. You might assume that if you stop eating dinner at 8 p.m. and wake up at 7 a.m. you fasted for 11 hours. Not quite. The fasting clock doesn't start the moment you swallow your last bite. It starts once insulin finishes processing that meal, and a heavy dinner with pasta, bread, or dessert can keep insulin elevated for 3 or 4 extra hours, so that 11-hour window might really only represent 7 or 8 hours of actual fasting time. The simple fix is stopping eating at least 2 to 3 hours before bed. That alone lets your body cross into this first stage while you sleep, giving your digestive system genuine rest and letting blood sugar settle into a healthy rhythm. Once that gate finally opens, your body starts looking around for what else it can clean up. Stage 2, around 14 to 16 hours, the internal cleanup crew. Somewhere between 14 and 16 hours, your cells notice that no new food is coming. This is when one of the most fascinating processes in human biology kicks into higher gear. Researchers call it autophagy, but you can think of it simply as an internal cleanup crew. Over time, your cells accumulate junk, worn-out components, damaged proteins, small bits of cellular debris from everyday wear and tear. This buildup is thought to be one of the contributors to that sluggish, foggy, older than I'd like to feel sensation many people notice creeping in. When the cleanup crew activates, it moves through your cells, clears out damaged material, and either recycles it into new components or burns it for energy. Your cells essentially refurbish themselves from the inside out. This process isn't a light switch, it's running quietly in the background all the time, but research suggests it meaningfully accelerates once you pass roughly the 16-hour mark. Scientists studying cellular aging have pointed to this cleanup process as one of the mechanisms that may help explain fasting's connection to protecting against age-related decline. For a lot of people, 16 hours becomes a natural sweet spot, eating a last meal around 8 p.m. and not eating again until noon the next day. It fits into ordinary life without drama, without willpower battles, just a quiet window where the body handles its own maintenance. But cleaning up is one thing. What happens next is when your body actually switches its entire fuel system. Stage 3, around 18 to 20 hours, the fuel switch. Push past the 18 to 20 hour mark and your body runs low on easily accessible stored sugar. Instead of sounding an alarm, it calmly walks down to that backup generator and switches it on. Your liver starts pulling fat out of storage and converting it into a clean burning fuel called ketones. Here's the part that sounds backward until you actually experience it. Hunger tends to fade rather than intensify. We've been taught that the longer you go without food, the hungrier you get, but the biology tells a different story. Hunger is largely controlled by a hormone called ghrelin, and ghrelin works in waves. It spikes at your usual eating times, then settles back down if you don't respond to it. Ride out a wave or two, and the intensity fades. Once ketones start circulating, they reach the brain and effectively signal that plenty of fuel is available, no urgent need to eat. Many people report that around the 20-hour mark they feel noticeably sharper, calmer, and more focused than they do on a full stomach. The brain runs efficiently on ketones, which is part of why that familiar afternoon mental fog tends to lift during this stage. This is often where fasting stops feeling uncomfortable and starts feeling genuinely good. Your body has fully shifted modes, and it's just getting started. Stage 4, around 24 hours, deep repair. At the 24-hour mark, that cellular cleanup crew essentially upgrades into a full demolition team. Cleanup activity appears to increase substantially, with your body prioritizing the oldest, most damaged, most inflamed cells in the system, rather than just light tidying. This matters more than it might sound. Many of the everyday discomforts people notice, morning joint stiffness, a shoulder ache that never quite resolves, that heavy feeling after a big meal, are connected to chronic, low-grade inflammation running quietly in the background for years. At 24 hours, your body gets a genuine opportunity to address some of that. So your gut also gets real rest at this stage. The intestinal lining works constantly every single day, absorbing nutrients and filtering out anything potentially harmful. A 24-hour break gives that lining a genuine window to repair minor damage and strengthen itself. Research published in metabolic science journals has pointed to longer fasting windows, supporting gut lining repair and reducing circulating inflammatory markers. People who occasionally add a single 24-hour fast to their month often notice calmer digestion, looser joints, and gradual, sustainable progress, not from dramatic calorie restriction, but because the body finally had an interrupted time to clear out the buildup. With that cleanup underway, your body shifts its attention to protecting something important. And this next stage is where a lot of persistent myths get debunked. Stage 5, around 48 hours, muscle protection. There's a common fear that going 2 full days without eating means your body will start breaking down your own muscle for fuel. The actual biology runs in the opposite direction. Around the 48-hour mark, your body activates a genuinely surprising protective mechanism. Growth hormone levels can rise substantially, in some research, to several times their normal baseline. In everyday conversation, growth hormone often gets framed as something bodybuilders chase, but during a fast, it plays a very different protective role. It acts almost like a bodyguard standing in front of your muscle tissue, preventing your body from breaking it down for energy. Instead, the body continues pulling energy from fat stores, which is exactly the outcome you'd want. Research examining supervised fasting has documented this growth hormone surge, noting that lean muscle tends to be well preserved as long as the person has adequate fat stores to draw from. Your body isn't careless here. If food genuinely became scarce, the last thing that would make sense biologically is weakening the very muscles needed to go find more of it. It protects them deliberately. One important detail: coming out of a 48-hour fast is not the moment for pizza or a large bowl of pasta. Digestion has been quiet for 2 days, and hitting it immediately with heavy food can trigger an uncomfortable blood sugar spike. The smarter approach is easing back in gently: bone broth, a couple of soft-boiled eggs, a small piece of grilled fish, maybe some avocado. Give your stomach roughly an hour to fully wake up before eating a full, normal meal. Once you understand how to navigate 2 full days, you're ready for the stage that genuinely surprised the research world. Stage 6, around 72 hours, immune renewal. At 72 hours, something remarkable happens. Something researchers at USC documented in a widely cited study that made headlines back in 2014. When the body reaches this point, it appears to trigger a kind of reboot of the immune system. Here's what the research found. After roughly 3 days without food, the body begins clearing out old, less effective white blood cells, immune cells that have been circulating for too long and aren't functioning as well as they once did. Then, once eating resumed, participants' stem cells received a signal to produce a fresh wave of new, active immune cells. The study focused specifically on patients undergoing chemotherapy, and the results showed that extended fasting appeared to help their bodies regenerate a renewed immune system following treatment. Researchers described it as one of the more dramatic natural regeneration processes documented in human biology, something close to a reset for the body's defense system. This obviously isn't something to approach casually. 3-day fasts should only be attempted by healthy adults, ideally with medical guidance, especially for anyone on medication or managing an existing health condition. But the underlying point stands: your body appears to have a built-in reset mechanism, and it sits behind a door marked 72 hours. How you break a fast at this length matters enormously. Those new immune cells need real building blocks, quality protein, healthy fats and whole foods, not processed food. Bringing it together, metabolic flexibility. Before you plan a 3-day fast for next weekend, there's one final idea that ties all of this together, arguably the most important part of the entire picture. None of these stages matter much if you don't build them into a sustainable, repeatable rhythm. The ultimate goal of fasting isn't proving how long you can go without eating. It's training your body to switch smoothly between fuel sources, burning what you just ate, and burning stored fat without drama. No energy crashes, no headaches, no desperate 3 p.m. cravings, just steadiness. This ability has a name: metabolic flexibility. Some people build this through a daily 16-hour eating window. Others prefer eating normally most days of the week and keeping 1 or 2 days lighter. Both approaches genuinely work. The specific method matters far less than consistency. Your liver runs on something close to its own internal clock. Eating at 6 a.m. one day, skipping breakfast the next, having brunch at 11 a.m. on the weekend, then a midnight snack on Friday sends mixed signals, something like flying across time zones every few days. That inconsistency tends to create its own low-grade stress rather than the calm, steady state fasting is meant to produce. Picking an eating window you can genuinely live with and keeping it roughly consistent day to day is what allows all of these processes to run reliably on schedule. So here's the full picture of what your body does when you give it a real, sustained break from food. At 12 hours, insulin finally drops and fat stores become accessible. By 16 hours, cellular cleanup picks up speed and starts clearing internal buildup. Around 20 hours, your liver starts producing ketones, hunger fades, and mental clarity sharpens. At 24 hours, deep repair kicks in and inflammation begins to drop. Push to 48 hours and a surge of growth hormone protects your muscles while your body burns through fat reserves. And at 72 hours, your body begins clearing out old immune cells to build fresh ones. Once you eat again, you don't need to chase every single stage. Just find a rhythm you can genuinely stick with, keep it consistent, and let your body do what it already knows how to do. If this changed the way you think about what happens when you're not eating, that's exactly the kind of thing this channel exists to break down. The real documented biology behind everyday habits that quietly shape your long-term health. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and drop a comment letting me know which stage surprised you the most and how long your longest fast has ever been. See you in the next video.